Bashtop, Bpytop, and now Btop++ or Btop, depending on what you actually check. The saga of rewriting the exact same resource monitor again and again and again continues, and this time the developer wanted to learn C++, so now we get C++. But I wouldn't be giving this developer free advertising if they didn't actually add something to the application. And visually, this looks fairly similar to Bpytop. It's got a couple of minor changes, like there's curves on the edge of these sections now, but besides that, it looks pretty similar. However, the jump between Bpytop and Btop is considerably smaller than between Bashtop and Bpytop. Between those two, the application went from being horribly slow and basically unusable to actually pretty good. Now, it is a lot faster, like it basically refreshes almost instantly, but it's not as big of a jump. But it does have a really good change, and I'm so happy it was actually added. So the one thing that Btop has always had over these other resource monitors is being able to run arbitrary signals. It's great to be able to do sigterm and sigkill, but other signals do exist. So all of these signals are things that actually do have use cases, but no more. Finally, Btop lets me actually run other signals. So if we go and select something in this list by using the arrow keys and then press the S key, all of these signals are available. Now, it doesn't have every single signal, so you might have noticed that there are all of these ones called sig_rt_min plus some number. These are basically empty signals that you can do whatever you want with, but they're not in the list supported by Btop. But at least having this list is better than what we had before. Now, if you're just looking for a shortcut to do kill and terminate, those shortcuts are still there, but they have had a big improvement. So trying to run something like sigterm is going to give you a confirmation prompt. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. It bothers me when confirmation prompts aren't even an option. Sure, this is going to slow you down just a bit, but if you accidentally kill something you weren't supposed to, this is going to stop you doing that. But it gets so much better because even though those signals are not listed, you can still actually send them. So if we go and try to type something above the limit being 64, it actually goes and sets it back to the limit, and if we try to send that signal over to Btop, Btop crashes out because there's no idea what to do with it. So it is sending it. Honestly, this is all I wanted. If it did nothing else besides this, I would want to run Btop. Another really good change this has is previous versions only rendered properly in true color and 256 color terminals. So true color terminal are things like Kitty and Alacrity, terminals that can display all of the RGB colors. 256 color terminals are things like Xterm. They only have a color palette of 256 colors, but another common terminal you see is a 16 color terminal. Typically, this is just going to be your TTY. If you tried to run the old versions in the TTY, it would be completely busted. Now, there is a TTY mode, and you can actually go and set it to that mode as well. So if we go and select Force TTY, as we can see, now it's gone and set the graphics to something that'll render fine in a TTY. It's using a minimal color scheme, and it works great. If you are using a true color terminal like I am, you actually can go and force it into 256 color mode by going and selecting the true color option, and yeah, it's still going to do basically what it does, it just uses less colors. Now, the way the graphs are being rendered is with Unicode Braille, but Unicode Braille isn't in every single font set, so you might want to back off to something a little bit more common. So if we go into the options again and select the graph symbol, we can go and select Unicode blocks. These are basically in every single Unicode compatible font, or the other option is to set it to TTY mode, which is basically using the 3 most common blocks you'll see, and this is going to be fine in pretty much everything. Now, you may have spotted this option in the settings list already, but there is now a Vim key mode. So the way this works is we can use the J and K keys to go up and down inside of the proc list, we can use H and L to go left and right through the different ways of sorting it, and there were actually some keys already bound to H and K. So the thing bound to H was the help menu. That is now on capital H. And if you want to go and kill a process, that is now on capital K. And I presume if any other keys are added in the future which conflict with the Vim key mode, like the ones that already do, they'll probably just be put on the shift layer to make sure they're just not a problem. But you also might have spotted that if it is on a shift layer and it is displayed on the screen, they'll actually mention it is actually capitalized now, so it is still fairly easy to work out. Now, the sections I didn't mention already, the CPU section, the net section, the memory, and the disk section, all work exactly the same way they worked back in Bpytop. They do render a little bit quicker now, but as for their actual functionality, nothing new seems to have been added. The CPU section has had a bit of a rework when it comes to its styling, but that's basically about it. Now, back on Bpytop, we had a thing called modes. Modes were basically different layouts you could have on the screen. That was on the M key. Modes have now been removed and replaced with presets, so basically, they work pretty much exactly the same. Now it's on the P key, and the other difference is on certain presets, you can actually have different symbols. So in this case, we are using the TTY symbol on the net, and then the block symbol on CPU. But if you don't want to modify them, you don't ever have to. That's the other thing. Presets can be modified. While that's the case, this is very much an alpha feature still, and I really don't like the way you modify stuff. So going into the menu, if we go down to the section on presets, basically it is this giant string that describes what is in each preset. I don't fully understand how this actually works, but I do have a better idea for how it could be done. So there is actually this section here called shown boxes. Shown boxes will decide which boxes are actually shown on the current screen. So I would say get rid of the presets entirely, make it so you can cycle through empty presets, and then if you want to go and modify what is inside of that preset, make use of shown boxes and automatically generate presets from that. Maybe that'll happen in the next version, or maybe it'll be an update to Btop, but I think that'll be a major improvement. Now, while that is the case, I didn't make use of modes back in Bpytop, and I don't make use of modes in Btop, so this basic layout is all I actually need, but having the modification actually being easier is going to encourage users to actually make use of it. Now, back in Bpytop, when you resize the screen, it would show you this weird resizing screen. I never really understood why. It seems like it's just wasting render times for the sake of actually wasting them. Now in Bashtop, you do actually see that screen when the window is too small to actually render the application, which makes total sense. But every other time, it just doesn't update the application until it actually can. I think that makes a lot more sense. It's not wasting time showing a warning that doesn't need to be there. And if it can't render it, just showing it pause for a moment, I think does all it needs to do. Now, the new menu is a little more cleanly laid out. There is a box around it, and it looks fairly nice. There's not really a ton going on in here. Most of the new settings are sort of just like graphically changes. Like, oh, you want to change where something is located on the screen. You want to change, like, the name of the CPU. You want to change, like, the mapping between CPU core temps. Things like that. Nothing, like, really noteworthy, but I still want to mention it just to say that it was there. Now, I should mention as well that just like the older versions, you don't have to configure it inside of this window. You can actually go and configure it inside of the config file. That is located in the .config directory in the Btop folder in a file called btop.conf. And like the older versions, the documentation in here is absolutely phenomenal. Basically, what they've done is taken the documentation that exists inside of the application and then put it inside the config file as well, making it really easy to work out what you need to do without going back and forth between the wiki. Honestly, I feel like more applications should do this. If you have an explanation of the options in your wiki, just put them in the config file by default. It'll make things so much easier, and they won't have to like mess around trying to work it out, asking you dumb questions in the issues. It'll just all be here. Overall, Btop is just an upgrade. If you're still using Bashtop, you're using Bpytop, just start using Btop. It does everything the older versions did. It does it faster, and what more do you need? It's just a better application. So I'm going to be using Btop now. I wasn't using the older versions because I missed not having the arbitrary signals and still needed HTOP around. Now that it does that, I don't have any reason to keep using Htop. Sure, Htop's convenient for systems that don't have this, but my system, I'm just going to be on Btop from now on. Now, the very important question is, where do we go from here? Now that we have a C++ version, there's not really much lower we can go. Some people have been asking for a Rust version, some people have been asking for a C version. I know the developer's ultimate goal is an assembly version, which he wants to call Bashtop, but there's a few steps in between those points that you can stick some more applications in, so we'll see what actually happens. And now that I'm this far into the saga, I'm going to follow it to the end, and I'm going to keep giving you free promotion. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think of Btop? Do you think it's actually an upgrade? Are you going to be using it? Or maybe you're still happy on Bashtop or Bpytop and waiting for the next version. I would love to know. So if you like this video, I'm going to go and like the video. And if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, go check out my Patreon, subscribe to Bpytop, linked in the description down below. I've got a podcast called Tech Over Tea, available basically anywhere. I've got a gaming channel called Brodie Robertson Plays, where I play Linuxy games, and that's going to be it for me. So, I'm out.